She thought denying a woman in sneakers would make her look important, but in less than 9 minutes, everyone at Gate B12 would learn who truly owned the sky. Hello, everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. The private terminal at Ashford Executive Airport gleamed beneath the early morning sun, its glass walls reflecting rows of polished jets worth more than most neighborhoods. Inside, marble floors carried the sound of rolling luggage and quiet conversations from executives in tailored suits. Assistants moved quickly with tablets in hand. Drivers in black uniforms waited near the doors. Everything about the place announced status, money, and access. Then Claire Donovan walked in wearing white sneakers, faded blue jeans, and a beige coat that looked years old. She carried one overnight bag and a paper coffee cup. Her hair was tied back loosely, and there was nothing about her appearance that invited attention, which was exactly how she preferred it. At 39, Claire had spent most of her life learning that silence revealed more than speaking ever could. While others chased recognition, she studied people. While others announced wealth, she watched how they treated strangers. This morning, she had no interest in being noticed. She only wanted to board Flight 7A to Chicago, attend a confidential board meeting, and return before sunset. The company she had quietly acquired overnight would officially become hers in less than 3 hours. No press releases had gone out yet. No staff had been informed. Only a handful of attorneys and board members knew the papers were signed. Claire liked it that way. Truth often arrived best when arrogance had no warning. She glanced at the departure board and continued toward Gate B12. A few people looked at her, then looked away. One man in a navy suit frowned slightly, as if trying to understand how someone dressed like that had entered the terminal. A woman wearing designer sunglasses tightened her grip on a luxury handbag. Claire noticed both reactions and kept walking. She had seen those looks in restaurants, hotels, boardrooms, and charity events. They no longer stung. They educated. Near the gate stood Vanessa Cole, lead cabin supervisor for Meridian Executive Air. Her uniform was flawless. Her blonde hair was pinned neatly. Her lipstick was sharp enough to look expensive. Vanessa held a tablet against one arm while speaking to 2 crew members with the confidence of someone who enjoyed being obeyed. She believed first impressions were facts. She also believed authority looked like her reflection in polished glass. When she saw Claire approaching, her smile disappeared before it had fully formed. Her eyes moved from the old coat to the sneakers to the paper coffee cup. Then they narrowed with practiced judgment. Claire reached the gate scanner and calmly held out her boarding pass. Vanessa did not take it. Instead, she gave the kind of smile people use when pretending to be polite while enjoying the opposite. "Ma'am," she said, loud enough for nearby passengers to hear. "This boarding area is for executive charter guests only." The room shifted. Heads turned subtly. Conversations slowed. Claire lowered her hand. "I'm aware," she replied. Her voice was even, almost gentle. Vanessa folded her arms. "Then you must also be aware this is not the commercial terminal." A few people smirked. Someone coughed to hide a laugh. Claire looked at the jet through the wide windows beyond the gate, then back at Vanessa. "Yes," she said. "I know exactly which plane this is." Vanessa's expression hardened. She mistook calmness for weakness, as arrogant people often do. "I'm going to need you to step aside," she said. "Our actual passengers will begin boarding any minute now." Claire studied her for a moment, then glanced at the silver watch on her wrist. 8:51 a.m. Right on schedule. She looked back up, her eyes steady. "Are you certain," she asked softly, "that you'd like to do this publicly?" For the first time, Vanessa hesitated. Only for a second. Then pride returned stronger than caution. And in 9 minutes, it would cost her everything. Vanessa Cole let the silence around Gate B12 work in her favor. She had learned long ago that embarrassment spread fastest when witnesses were present. The executives waiting nearby pretended not to stare, but their eyes kept drifting back to the woman in sneakers who had apparently wandered into the wrong corner of privilege. Vanessa straightened the gold pin on her lapel and extended one manicured hand toward the seating area. "Please wait over there, ma'am," she said. "You are delaying boarding." Claire Donovan did not move. She set her paper coffee cup on a nearby table with careful calmness, as if she had all the time in the world. "I am not delaying anything," she replied. "You are." A faint murmur moved through the terminal. Vanessa felt it and disliked it instantly. Public authority depended on momentum. Once people sensed uncertainty, respect began to leak away. She tapped her tablet screen sharply. "Name?" she asked. "Claire Donovan." Vanessa searched the manifest. Her brows tightened. There was no Donovan listed, at least not on the passenger page she had open. She lifted the tablet slightly, satisfied by what she believed was proof. "As I suspected," she said. "You are not on this flight." Claire's eyes lowered briefly to the screen, then rose again. "Interesting," she said. "Would you like to check every page?" The comment landed harder than it sounded. Vanessa ignored it. "I am going to ask one final time for you to step aside before I involve airport security." Nearby, a middle-aged man in a charcoal suit shifted uncomfortably. A younger assistant beside him whispered, "This feels unnecessary." Vanessa heard him and smiled without warmth. "Sir, we maintain standards here." Claire glanced at her watch again. 8:53 a.m. 7 minutes. She took out her phone, typed 4 words, and pressed send. Then she slipped it back into her coat pocket. Vanessa laughed softly. "Calling someone to rescue you?" Claire answered without expression. "No. Calling someone to witness you." The room grew quieter. Even the sound of luggage wheels seemed farther away. Through the tall windows, the silver jet waited on the tarmac with its stairs lowered and cabin lights glowing. It was a custom Gulfstream painted in understated graphite, the meridian crest near the tail. To most people, it looked like transportation for the powerful. To Claire, it looked like a spreadsheet with wings. She had reviewed its maintenance costs at midnight. She had approved a catering contract for it at 2 in the morning. She had inherited its liabilities with the signature that transferred ownership of the company before dawn. But Vanessa still saw only jeans and sneakers. Pride often had poor eyesight. 2 crew members approached cautiously from behind the gate desk. One was a young attendant named Rachel Pierce, barely 24, her posture uncertain. The other, senior steward Mark Ellison, carried the practiced expression of a man who survived by agreeing with whoever held rank that day. "Everything all right?" Mark asked. Vanessa did not look at him. "This woman is refusing instructions." Rachel glanced at Claire, then at the boarding pass still in her hand. "May I see that, ma'am?" she asked quietly. Vanessa snapped her head around. "Rachel." The younger woman froze. "I did not ask for assistance." Rachel stepped back immediately, cheeks flushing. Claire noticed. She noticed everything. "You should let her read it," Claire said. "She seems curious enough to be competent." A few suppressed smiles appeared among the waiting passengers. Vanessa's face reddened. "That is enough," she said. "You do not speak to my crew." Claire tilted her head slightly. "Your crew?" The question was gentle. The damage was not. Vanessa opened her mouth, then closed it. She was saved by the sound of tires outside. Heads turned toward the terminal entrance as black SUVs rolled past the glass doors in a tight line. Drivers stepped out in dark suits. A receptionist near the lobby stood so quickly her chair tipped backward. The security manager touched his earpiece and hurried forward. Claire checked her watch one more time. 8:58 a.m. For minutes remained. She picked up her coffee, took a small sip, and looked at Vanessa with the calm of someone watching weather. Approach from far away. "You still have time," she said. "Use it wisely." The black SUVs came to a precise stop outside the terminal doors, engines idling in perfect silence. Men and women in dark suits stepped out with the focused speed of people whose lateness cost money. Conversations across the lounge faded mid-sentence. Phones lowered. Even those who had tried not to watch now watched openly. Vanessa Cole kept her chin high, but something in her posture tightened. She turned to the security manager approaching from the lobby. "Good," she said briskly. "Please remove this woman from the boarding area." The security manager, Thomas Reed, barely glanced at Claire before looking past Vanessa toward the entrance. His face changed instantly. "Stand by," he muttered into his earpiece. He straightened his jacket and moved away without responding. Vanessa blinked. Being ignored was not an experience she handled gracefully. "Excuse me?" she called after him. He did not stop. Claire said nothing. She simply watched the terminal doors open. First came two legal aides carrying binders. Then a gray-haired man with an expensive coat and the quick stride of someone used to commanding rooms. Several passengers recognized him at once. "That is Miles Turner," someone whispered. "Chief Operating Officer of Meridian." Another voice followed. "Why would he be here?" Vanessa heard both comments and felt a cold line of concern trace down her spine. Miles Turner crossed the marble floor without greeting anyone. He passed executives, investors, and airport staff as though they were furniture. His eyes scanned the room once and settled on Claire Donovan. Immediately, his expression shifted from urgency to relief. He reached her and stopped. "Ma'am," he said, slightly out of breath, "the board has assembled on board. Council is waiting. We were told you were delayed." Then, in full view of everyone at Gate B12, he lowered his head respectfully. The room went still. Vanessa's tablet nearly slipped from her hand. Rachel Pierce covered her mouth. Mark Ellison stared at Claire as if trying to replace one reality with another. Claire gave Miles a calm nod. "I was delayed," she said, glancing briefly toward Vanessa. "But the source has identified itself." A few nervous laughs escaped from nearby passengers before dying quickly. Vanessa stepped forward, forcing a smile that no longer reached her eyes. "Mr. Turner, there appears to be some misunderstanding." This guest did not identify herself properly. Claire turned slowly toward her. "Guest?" she asked. Miles looked from Vanessa to Claire, then understood everything in one glance. He removed his glasses. "Ms. Cole," he said quietly, "do you know who this is?" Vanessa swallowed. "I was not informed of any special passenger." Miles' voice became flatter. "This is Claire Donovan, controlling owner of Meridian Executive Air as of 6:30 this morning. Effective immediately, she is your employer." The silence deepened into something almost physical. Across the lounge, a man who had smirked earlier looked down at his shoes. The woman with designer sunglasses suddenly became fascinated by her phone screen. Rachel stood motionless, eyes wide. Vanessa's face drained of color one shade at a time. "Owner?" she repeated faintly. "There must be some mistake." Claire reached into her coat pocket and handed Miles a folded document. He opened it, revealing signature pages and corporate seals. "No mistake," he said. "Federal filings were completed 47 minutes ago." Vanessa looked at Claire the way people look at locked doors after hearing the latch click. I was only enforcing procedure," she said. "We have standards for private travel." Claire's expression did not change. "You do," she replied, "and you demonstrated them publicly." She turned to Rachel. "Did you ask to verify my pass?" Rachel nodded nervously. "Yes, ma'am." "And were you stopped from doing so?" Rachel glanced at Vanessa, then lowered her eyes. "Yes, ma'am." Claire nodded once. Then she faced the gathered crew. Interesting. Competence was available. It was simply outranked by ego. Several people looked away. Miles closed the binder. "Board meeting begins in 18 minutes, he said softly. Claire checked her watch. "Then let us not waste another one." She picked up her overnight bag and stepped toward the gate scanner. The machine chimed green before anyone touched it. Vanessa stared at the screen. Under passenger authorization, one line flashed in clear letters: Owner Priority Access. And for the first time that morning, Vanessa Cole understood that authority borrowed from a uniform can disappear faster than it was put on. Claire Donovan stepped through the gate without looking back. The scanner light remained green, as if even the machine understood who belonged there all along. Miles Turner walked beside her, speaking in a low voice about voting thresholds, pending contracts, and the board members already seated inside the aircraft conference cabin. Claire listened while adjusting the strap of her overnight bag, calm as ever, as though public humiliation followed by public revelation was simply another item on a morning schedule. Behind them, no one moved for several seconds. Then reality returned all at once. Phones rose. Whispers broke loose. The passengers who had watched in silence now spoke with the urgency people use when they realized they had witnessed a moment others would soon hear about secondhand. Vanessa Cole remained near the podium, shoulders rigid, tablet pressed against her chest like a shield that no longer worked. Rachel Pierce looked from Claire to Vanessa and back again, trying to understand how quickly power could reverse itself. Mark Ellison quietly removed his name badge, then clipped it back on, then removed it again. Some habits fail when panic arrives. At the base of the jet stairs, Claire paused and turned. The entire terminal fell quiet once more. She did not raise her voice. She did not need to. "Ms. Cole," she said. Vanessa stepped forward immediately. "Yes, ma'am." The title came quickly now. Too quickly. Claire noticed. "Bring your full crew manifest to the cabin in 5 minutes." Vanessa nodded with visible relief, mistaking summons for forgiveness. "Of course, ma'am. Thank you." Claire studied her for one unreadable moment. "Do not thank me yet." She continued up the stairs. The words settled heavily over the terminal. Inside the aircraft, polished walnut walls reflected soft lighting. Cream leather seats lined the cabin, though the forward section had been converted into a boardroom layout with 4 swivel chairs around a conference table. 2 attorneys stood when Claire entered. 3 board members followed. One older director with silver cufflinks offered a cautious smile. "Ms. Donovan, dramatic entrance." Claire set down her bag. "Unplanned," she replied. "Useful, though." She took the head seat. Through the open cabin door, the terminal remained visible beyond the stairs. Ground staff hurried with new intensity. Miles distributed folders. "Item 1, he said. Leadership restructuring." Claire opened the top folder but did not read it yet. "Before we begin," she said, "I would like to hear the company mission statement." The directors exchanged glances. Finally, one recited from memory. "Discretion, excellence, and unmatched client care." Claire nodded slowly. "Good words." She looked out toward the terminal where Vanessa was now rushing between crew members. How expensive are words when actions oppose them? No one answered. They had all run companies long enough to know that rhetorical questions from owners were rarely rhetorical. Miles cleared his throat. "You requested all employee complaints and retention reports overnight. They are in Section 3. Claire flipped there immediately. Numbers, resignation summaries, anonymous feedback, and staffing turnover charts filled the pages. Patterns emerged fast. High attrition under specific supervisors. Repeated complaints about condescension. Guest dissatisfaction quietly settled with vouchers rather than reform. Vanity in uniforms. Neglect in culture. She closed the folder. "Interesting," she said. "This company did not need new jets. It needed mirrors." A soft knock came from the cabin entrance. Vanessa stood there with Rachel, Mark, and 2 additional attendants. Their expressions carried varying degrees of fear, confusion, and calculation. Miles looked to Claire. She nodded once. "Bring them in." They entered carefully, as if stepping into church after causing damage in the parking lot. Vanessa handed over the manifest with both hands. "Everything you requested, ma'am." Claire accepted it but did not look down. "Ms. Cole," she said. "How long have you supervised premium cabin teams?" 7 years. "And in those 7 years, how many times have you mistaken humility for lack of status?" Vanessa's lips parted, then closed. "I do not know how to answer that." "That makes 2 of us," Claire said. Rachel lowered her eyes to hide a sudden smile. Mark stared straight ahead. The board members remained silent, sensing they were no longer in a meeting about aviation. They were in a lesson about character. Claire finally opened the manifest and turned one page. "Let us continue," she said. "Today we discuss performance, culture, and who among you still deserves altitude." No one in the cabin spoke until Claire Donovan finished reviewing the manifest. The only sounds were the distant hum of the aircraft systems and the faint tapping of rain beginning against the windows outside. Weather had moved in quietly over the runway, soft gray clouds replacing the morning sun. It suited the mood perfectly. Claire placed the manifest on the conference table and folded her hands. "I believe in first impressions," she said. Vanessa Cole straightened slightly, hopeful that the sentence favored her. Claire continued, "But not the kind based on shoes, jackets, or handbags. I believe in the first impression people create through behavior." The room went still again. Miles Turner sat back and let the silence do its work. Vanessa glanced toward the board members as if one of them might intervene. None did. Owners ask questions differently than managers. Claire looked to Rachel Pierce. "You attempted to verify a boarding pass instead of making assumptions. How long have you been with Meridian?" Rachel blinked in surprise. 11 months, ma'am." "Any prior hospitality experience?" 3 years with Lakeshore Hotels in Dallas, ma'am." Claire nodded. "And have you applied for advancement?" Rachel hesitated. "Twice." Claire turned one page in the file. "Denied both times. No explanation given." Rachel's cheeks flushed. "Yes, ma'am." Claire's gaze shifted to Vanessa. "Would you like to explain?" Vanessa swallowed. "We prioritized leadership presence." Claire's expression remained neutral. "Leadership presence." She repeated the phrase as though testing expired milk. "Interesting. Define it." Vanessa opened her mouth, then closed it. "Confidence," she said finally. "Composure. Professional image." Claire tilted her head. "And kindness did not make the list?" No one moved. Mark Ellison stared at a spot on the carpet so intensely it might have owed him money. Claire continued, "I reviewed overnight complaints. 43% of negative client comments mention tone, dismissiveness, or visible contempt from cabin supervisors. 31% cite one department." She looked directly at Vanessa. "Yours." Vanessa's voice dropped. "Some clients are difficult." Claire leaned back. "Many wealthy people are difficult. That is not new information. The question is whether your pride became more difficult than the clients." The board members exchanged glances. One of them quietly underlined something in his notes. Claire turned to Mark. "Mr. Ellison, how long have you served on board?" 9 years, ma'am." "And why have you remained silent during repeated misconduct?" Mark looked shaken. "I was trying to keep my position." Claire nodded once. "Honest answer. Weak answer, but honest." Mark lowered his eyes. She then faced the remaining attendants. "If anyone here has felt pressured to treat guests differently based on appearance, income assumptions, age, race, or status, now is your safest moment to speak." The younger attendant near the doorway raised a trembling hand. "We were told to prioritize people who looked important," she said quietly. Vanessa snapped her head toward her. "That is not what I said." "You said visible value matters," the attendant replied, voice gaining strength. Rachel added softly, "You also said people who arrive casually usually waste time." Vanessa's composure cracked in small pieces. "This is absurd. I built standards here." Claire's eyes sharpened for the first time. "No, you built fear and called it standards." The words landed like a door shutting. Outside, ground crew paused near the wing stairs, sensing something significant was happening inside. Claire stood slowly. Nobody else dared remain seated, so everyone rose with her. "Effective immediately," she said. "Vanessa Cole is relieved of supervisory duty pending formal separation review. Mark Ellison is suspended for failure to report repeated misconduct. Human Resources will meet both of you when we land." Vanessa stared in disbelief. You cannot decide this from one misunderstanding. Claire stepped closer, voice still calm. I decided it from years of data. This morning merely introduced us. Vanessa's shoulders sagged. For the first time, she looked smaller than her uniform. Claire turned to Rachel. You will serve as acting cabin lead on this flight, with temporary pay adjustment beginning today. Rachel gasped softly. Ma'am, thank you. Do not thank me, Claire said. Earn it. Then she looked around the cabin one final time. Luxury is not champagne, leather, or polished metal. Luxury is making people feel welcome before they prove they can afford to be there. Anyone who does not understand that has no business representing this company. The room stayed silent because truth often sounds loudest when spoken softly. 22 minutes later, the jet climbed above the storm line and into clear blue sky. Sunlight poured through the oval windows, turning the cabin gold. Below them, the clouds looked soft and harmless, as if they had never darkened the runway at all. Claire Donovan sat at the head of the conference table reviewing acquisition notes while the board members spoke with noticeably sharper manners than they had on the ground. Power changes posture faster than altitude changes weather. Rachel Pierce moved through the cabin with measured confidence, offering coffee, sparkling water, and warm towels with the calm professionalism that had been overlooked for nearly a year. She was not flashy. She was attentive. Claire valued that far more. Miles Turner closed a financial folder and glanced toward the galley where Rachel was reorganizing supplies with efficient precision. You made your point quickly, he said. Claire signed a page without looking up. No, she replied. They made it slowly for years. One of the directors, Leonard Hale, cleared his throat. There may be concern among staff after such immediate decisions. Claire looked at him. Good. He blinked. She continued. Fear of fairness is useful when people have grown comfortable with unfairness. No one challenged her. They had all built careers around polished language, but plain truth had entered the room and taken the best seat. At cruising altitude, Captain Ethan Brooks requested permission to speak privately. Moments later, he entered the cabin, hat in hand, posture formal. Ms. Donovan, he said, I want to apologize for not intervening at the gate. Claire gestured to the empty chair across from her. Sit, Captain. He did, though cautiously. I heard raised voices through the cockpit corridor, he admitted. I assumed cabin management had it handled. Claire folded her hands. And what does a captain do when assumptions may harm passengers? His jaw tightened. He verifies. Correct, Claire said. Titles do not remove responsibility. They enlarge it. He nodded slowly, accepting the lesson without resentment. That alone impressed her. Then let me verify now, he said. The crew culture has been drifting for some time. I should have addressed it sooner. Claire studied him for a moment. Honest again. Better than polished excuses. She signed another document and slid it toward Miles. Captain Brooks remains in command. Add leadership retraining for all flight officers within 30 days. Miles nodded and made the note. Ethan exhaled quietly, grateful not for mercy, but for clarity. When he left, Leonard Hale leaned back in his seat. You run a company like a courtroom. Claire gave a faint smile. No, courtrooms punish after damage. I prefer preventing the next one. In the galley, Rachel overheard enough to understand that this flight was changing more than names on office doors. She approached the table carefully. Ma'am, lunch service is ready whenever you prefer. Claire looked up. What would you recommend? Rachel seemed startled by the question. The grilled salmon is excellent, ma'am, but the tomato basil soup is more popular. Claire closed her folder. Then bring me the soup. If many people love something simple, I usually trust them. Rachel smiled despite herself. It was the first relaxed smile anyone had worn all morning. Across the aisle, Mark Ellison sat in the rear jump seat awaiting instructions for landing, suspended but still on board until arrival. He stared at nothing in particular, replaying years of silence that had seemed safe until they became expensive. Vanessa Cole remained in a separate crew rest section, equally quiet. Pride often speaks loudly until consequences ask it to whisper. As the aircraft crossed into Illinois airspace, Claire rose and walked to the window. Chicago shimmered in the distance, steel and glass catching the afternoon light. Another city, another meeting, another group of people who would likely judge too quickly if given the chance. She had learned not to resent that habit in others. It made truth more dramatic when it arrived. Miles joined her near the window. "Press release goes out in 10 minutes, he said. "Your name will be everywhere by landing." Claire nodded. "Then let them print it." She looked down at the city below. "The people who matter will still notice how I treat waiters, assistants, drivers, and strangers." Miles smiled faintly. "That is why you bought the company, is it not?" Claire's reflection in the glass looked calm and unreadable. "No," she said softly. "That is why it was for sale." The jet touched down at Midway Executive Field with barely a tremor, tires kissing the runway so gently that several board members looked up in surprise. Captain Ethan Brooks had flown the landing the way professionals apologize when words are not enough. As the aircraft taxied past rows of hangars and polished corporate planes, phones across the cabin began vibrating almost in unison. The press release had gone live. Meridian Executive Air had officially been acquired by Donovan Holdings, with Claire Donovan named acting Chief Executive Officer effective immediately. Screens lit up with headlines, market alerts, and messages from people suddenly eager to remember they had always admired her. Claire remained seated, finishing the last spoonful of tomato basil soup as though public attention were background noise. Miles Turner checked his tablet. 3 news outlets already want comment, he said. 2 investors want private calls. And 1 former competitor wants lunch. Claire folded her napkin. Decline all 3. Even lunch. Especially lunch. The board members laughed softly, unsure whether they were allowed to. They were still learning the new climate. As the aircraft stopped near the terminal, ground staff lined up outside with greater formality than usual. Word traveled fast in aviation. Faster when jobs were involved. Rachel Pierce stood near the cabin door in her temporary lead role, posture straight, expression composed. She had spent the last hour proving what competence looks like when fear is removed from the room. Claire approached her before disembarking. "How far is your family from here?" Rachel seemed confused by the question. "About 40 miles, ma'am. Northwest suburbs." "Do they know you were nearly overlooked this morning?" Rachel gave a nervous smile. "No, ma'am." Claire nodded. "Good. Let them hear instead that you were promoted by noon." Rachel's eyes widened. "Promoted?" Miles stepped forward with a printed document already prepared. "Interim Director of Cabin Experience pending 90-day review," he said. "Compensation package included." Rachel covered her mouth, stunned. "I do not know what to say." Claire adjusted the strap of her bag. "Say thank you by treating strangers well when no one is watching." The young woman's eyes filled, but she held steady. "Yes, ma'am." Behind them, Mark Ellison stood quietly with a small carry-on and the posture of a man who had mistaken silence for safety too many times. Human resources representatives waited outside to escort him through next steps. Vanessa Cole remained seated in the rear crew section until called forward. When she finally emerged, her flawless appearance had lost its armor. She looked smaller now, not because anything physical had changed, but because arrogance had vacated the room. "Ms. Donovan," she said softly, "may I speak with you for 1 moment?" Claire paused near the open door. Sunlight poured in from the tarmac behind her. "You may." Vanessa clasped her hands tightly. "I worked hard for this career. I know what happened looked terrible, but I can change." Claire considered her carefully. She did not enjoy humiliation. She only refused to waste it when it arrived naturally. "I believe people can change," Claire said. "The question is whether they change after reflection or only after consequences." Vanessa lowered her gaze. "I do not know yet." "Then that is the first honest thing you have said to me." The room stayed silent. Claire continued. "You will receive severance according to policy and access to leadership coaching if you choose it. What you do next is no longer my department." Vanessa looked up, surprised. Mercy often confuses those who expected revenge. Thank you, she whispered. Claire gave a small shake of her head. Do not thank me for professionalism. That standard should have been yours already. She stepped onto the stairs and descended to the tarmac. Cameras from local business media had somehow appeared near the perimeter fence. Airport staff stood straighter. Drivers opened doors faster. The same world that ignored modest clothing now competed to impress it. Claire noticed the irony and kept walking. At the base of the stairs, Miles caught up beside her. Car is ready. Downtown meeting in 30 minutes. She glanced back once at the aircraft gleaming under the afternoon sun. Good, she said. Let them polish the plane. We still have to clean the company. As she entered the waiting sedan, employees across the ramp watched quietly, each carrying away a private lesson. Wealth can purchase comfort. Titles can command movement. But respect is earned in the small moments when no one important seems to be looking. The black sedan moved through downtown Chicago traffic with the quiet confidence of expensive engineering. Rain from the morning storm had washed the streets clean, leaving towers of glass and steel shining beneath a pale afternoon sun. Claire Donovan sat in the rear seat beside Miles Turner, reviewing employee reports on a tablet while the city rolled past in reflections. She had removed her beige coat and folded it neatly beside her, revealing the same simple white blouse she had worn at the terminal. Nothing about her appearance had changed. Yet now valets opened doors faster, receptionists stood straighter, and executives answered on the first ring. Status often begins in the eyes of others, not in the life of the person carrying it. We are 10 minutes out, Miles said. The downtown leadership team is assembled. They are nervous. Claire did not look up. Good. Miles smiled faintly. You enjoy that answer. No, she said. I enjoy honesty. Nervous people are usually paying attention. At Meridian Tower, the elevator rose 42 floors in smooth silence. The executive boardroom waiting above had once hosted years of polished presentations, inflated promises, and carefully worded excuses. Today it held something rarer. Accountability. When the doors opened, 12 senior managers were already standing around a walnut table overlooking Lake Michigan. Some wore expressions of concern. Others wore expressions rehearsed during elevator rides. All of them straightened when Claire entered. She walked in carrying no designer bag, no visible jewelry, and no need to impress anyone. Miles took a seat near the end of the table. Claire remained standing. Please sit, she said. Chairs moved immediately. I prefer meetings that begin on time and without applause. A few nervous chuckles died quickly. She placed one folder in the center of the table. This morning I was denied boarding on my own aircraft because I looked unimportant. Several faces froze. A regional vice president cleared his throat. We heard there was an incident. Claire looked at him. No, there was a culture. The room went silent. She opened the folder and began sliding pages down the table one by one. Guest complaints, turnover rates, internal surveys, anonymous testimonies, training gaps, repeated references to arrogance, favoritism, and class bias. These reports were available before sunrise, Claire said, which means they were available before I bought the company. Yet no one solved them. She turned to a silver-haired operations director named Randall Pierce. How long have you led service oversight? 5 years, he answered carefully. And in 5 years, why did complaints rise while bonuses rose faster? Randall swallowed. We focused on revenue growth. Claire nodded. A common mistake. Revenue without dignity is expensive later. She turned to another executive, Melissa Vaughn, head of talent development. How many frontline promotions came from internal recommendations last year? Melissa glanced at her notes. 12%. And how many from personal referrals? 38%. Claire folded her hands. So excellence had to know someone. No answer came. Outside the windows, helicopters crossed the skyline like distant insects. Inside, careers felt smaller by the minute. Claire finally Saturday, here is what changes today. First, blind promotion review panels. Names, photos, and personal contacts removed from first-round decisions. Second, all client-facing staff retrained on hospitality ethics. Third, executive bonuses tied partly to retention and complaint reduction. Fourth, mystery passenger audits begin next month. Heads lifted sharply at that one. Miles smiled into his notes. He knew she had saved the best for last. Mystery passenger audits? Randall asked. Unannounced evaluations, Claire said. Anonymous travelers. Real treatment. Real consequences. She let the words settle. You would be amazed what people reveal when they believe no one important is watching. A younger finance manager at the far end raised his hand cautiously. Ms. Donovan, with respect, are these reforms worth the disruption? Claire looked at him with genuine interest. What is your name? Trevor Mills. Trevor. This morning one employee nearly drove away the owner of the company because she valued appearances over facts. If that behavior can reach me, imagine what it has cost with people whose names you do not know. Trevor lowered his hand slowly. The lesson had found him. Claire closed the folder. We sell convenience to wealthy people. Fine. But from today forward, we will also sell dignity to everyone. The boardroom stayed still. Some were inspired. Some were threatened. Most were both. She stood and reached for her coat. Our brand was aircraft, she said. Now it will be character. Then she walked toward the door, leaving behind a room full of executives who had just learned that the most disruptive force in business is a leader who means exactly what she says. 3 months later, the lobby of Meridian Executive Air looked almost identical to the day Claire Donovan first walked through it in sneakers and a worn beige coat. The marble still gleamed. The glass still reflected polished aircraft outside. Executives still arrived with urgent calls and expensive luggage. Yet everything important had changed. Receptionists now greeted every guest before checking attire. Porters were trained to assist first and assume nothing. Coffee was offered to interns, chauffeurs, billionaires, and grandparents with equal warmth. Quiet details had replaced loud vanity. Culture often changes invisibly before profits announce it publicly. On a bright Monday morning, Miles Turner entered Claire's office carrying a fresh quarterly report and the expression of a man who enjoyed delivering surprising numbers. Retention up 26%, he said. Complaints down 41%. Repeat charter bookings at a record high. And employee referrals doubled. Claire looked up from a stack of handwritten letters sent by customers. She preferred letters to dashboards. Numbers told outcomes. Letters told truth. What about internal promotions? She asked. 37% this quarter, Miles said. Highest in company history. Claire nodded once. Then people finally believe effort can beat connections. Miles placed another envelope on her desk. There is one more item. She opened it. Inside was a formal acceptance letter from Rachel Pierce, now permanently appointed Vice President of Cabin Experience. Beneath the signature was a short handwritten note. Thank you for seeing me before I knew how to be seen myself. Claire smiled faintly and set it aside. Schedule lunch with her next week, she said. No conference room. Somewhere with noisy tables and slow service. Miles laughed. Why slow service? Because patience reveals character faster than speeches do. Across town, in a modest training center rented by a regional hospitality school, Vanessa Cole stood before 20 students wearing a plain navy blazer with no gold pin on the lapel. The title was gone. The posture had softened. On the whiteboard behind her were 6 words. Respect is the first luxury offered. She no longer introduced herself by rank. She introduced herself by lessons learned late. Never decide someone's value in the first 5 seconds, she told the room. Those 5 seconds can cost years. The students listened closely because regret, when honest, can sound wiser than pride ever did. Mark Ellison had taken a different road. After suspension and review, he accepted a lower role at a nonprofit medical transport service, helping coordinate flights for patients who needed urgent care across state lines. There were no champagne requests there, no designer luggage, no social games. only families carrying hope and fear. For the first time in years, he ended work tired for reasons that felt clean. At Meridian headquarters, Claire left her office that afternoon wearing the same white blouse and simple coat from the day she bought the company. The board had suggested a luxury wardrobe consultant months ago. She had suggested they spend the budget on employee scholarships instead. They had stopped making fashion recommendations after that. As she crossed the lobby, a young doorman hurried to open the front entrance, then paused. "Good afternoon, Ms. Donovan." Claire smiled. "Good afternoon, Mr. Lewis. How is your daughter's science project?" His face lit up. "She won second place, ma'am." "Then tell her second place is temporary." She stepped outside into the crisp city air where her driver waited beside the sedan. A woman in casual clothes approached the building carrying 2 children and looking uncertain. Before security could react, the doorman moved forward warmly. "Welcome to Meridian. How may I help you today?" Claire noticed the moment and said nothing. Good leaders do not need to narrate every victory. Sometimes they simply witness what has taken root. Miles joined her at the curb with one final update. "Analysts say the turnaround is remarkable. They keep asking what strategy changed everything so quickly." Claire glanced back at the revolving doors, where the mother and children were now being guided kindly to the visitor desk. "Tell them nothing changed quickly," she said. "People were ready for decency the whole time." She entered the car and looked